Welcome everyone to another session of The Pulse on the Global Days of Unity weekend. We'd like to take a moment to welcome the global audience from many, many countries today who are joining us live in this session. And for those of you who are joining for the first time, The Pulse is our monthly offering where we go a little bit deep and have these courageous conversations, if you like, about relevant topics for our time. It's not a one-way presentation where the visionaries are presenting to you, but this is an opportunity for a community discussion where you get the chance to ask questions and to share your thoughts. So it's very interactive, it's very spontaneous, and we'd like to welcome you all. So I'd like to take a moment now to introduce our wonderful presenters. We have Yifat Ashkenazi, who is an amazing artist, a musician, and a conscious festival producer and event producer from Israel. Welcome, Yifat. We have Manose, who is an amazing, amazing artist, incredible musician who's been traveling the world for decades now, uplifting consciousness and uplifting the energy of the field. Welcome, Manose.
Namaste. My pleasure to be here.
We have a dear friend and dear brother, Dr. Bruce Lipton, internationally recognized cellular biologist and award-winning author. Welcome, Bruce.
Honored to be here with you and our wonderful audience. Thank you.
We also have Bhavani Lev, another dear, dear friend and sister. Bhavani has dedicated her life to uplifting consciousness in the world, especially through the business sector. She is the founder of Organic India and also the founder of UPLIFT. Welcome, Bhavani. So wonderful to have you here.
Namaste, and welcome to this glorious community of inspired beings.
Thank you. And we also have Anand Mehrotra from Rishikesh, India. Anand is a great spiritual teacher who has a wonderful spiritual community and ashram in India. Welcome, Anand.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be with you all.
And last but not least, my dear brother, Prince EA. Many of you know him. He's an incredible artist as well. I call him an artivist. He combines art, poetry, beautiful production of videos with consciousness and activism, the activism of the heart. Welcome, Prince EA.
Thank you, Chris. Good to be here with all of these beautiful people, and shout out to everybody watching. I'm excited. I'm so excited to have this courageous conversation.
Yes. So today's conversation, where we'll be going a little bit deep, the topic is moving from separation to oneness, which is a very potent topic of our time. There's so much division happening in the world, especially in the States right now. And then with COVID and with all what we've gone through in 2020, this particular topic is super relevant. And once again, I'd like to invite the global audience, for those of you who are joining live, if you're feeling the passion, if you're feeling inspired, please send some questions in. We'll be taking questions live as we go. But we have a few questions already in, and I'm going to start with this question from Randall from Portland. I live in Portland, Oregon, and my city is totally divided to the point that I am scared to walk the streets in fear of seeing violence. I totally understand the spiritual concept that separation is an illusion and that we are all connected, but I can't help feeling that I'm bypassing the reality that the separation is real. How can we move to oneness in the face of such intense division and hatred, where people are literally arming themselves up for a potential civil war? What will it take? Wow, that's a powerful first question. I'd like to direct this question first to Prince EA. Do you have some thoughts you can share?
Wow, man, wow. Because that question, it speaks to a spiritual dimension and also a level of practicality, right? When I haven't been to Portland in years, but I've seen what's happening on the news with the government, the protests, the violence, the police, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And the first thing you have to do is to center and be still in yourself. Because if you emanate that fearful energy, which is what you're seeing in the community, then you just add to that. So your emanation, your vibration has to be that of unity, peace, and love first. All right. So that's the first thing you do. And I think when we have that state of presence, then our lenses on our glasses that we use to view the world changes. Right. So we no longer see violence. We see confusion. We see fear. And the action, the spontaneous action that comes out of that seeing is healing. So I think it's important to be a healer, first of yourself, and to also surround yourself with other healers, other people that resonate that vibration. And the more of us, the more people that can resonate that and stand with that with authority, that's when things shift. That's when we make a consciousness shift, because all of separation is a concept, is an idea. We're never going to create a peaceful world with ideas. Peace is here already, before ideas, before concepts. So when we talk about going from separation to unity, it's almost a false premise. You don't go from here to there. It's a recognition that you are already there.
Thank you. Thank you, Prince A.
Question. Wow, I love it.
Look, it's a potent question for our time, because, you know, people are feeling the pressure, and it's easy when you're feeling comfortable to have these sort of more esoteric discussions. But, you know, when you're not so comfortable and it's really in your face every day, how do you even start? Because it's so... Anand, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this question.
Yeah, it's a beautiful question to open this space up. I think one of the beautiful scriptures in yoga, the yogic teachings, happens in a battlefield. This beautiful conversation which goes on for 18 chapters called the Bhagavad Gita, it is set in a battlefield. So from the yogic perspective, the spirituality is always relevant. And the greater the intensity of the relative reality, the more relevant the practice of compassion, the practice of awareness becomes. Because it is only the practice of awareness and compassion which is the antidote to the experience of violence or experience of fear in the relative field of reality. And as Prince has said, as you anchor in that level of awareness, cognizing the relative field challenge and looking at that challenge as an invitation to go deeper into that loving awareness. You see, all that is happening in the relative field is an invitation. And that's our purpose here, is to go deeper into realization. And to the degree we realize unity, from that experience of isolated awareness, being stuck in a bag of skin, the degree we realize unity within ourselves, we start to see that on the relative field of reality. Then the dominant value within the field of our awareness is not the theater that humanity plays out. There is also people doing incredible acts of kindness. There is also birds and animals, and there is so much beauty also in the relative field. That is not to deny the theater that humanity creates. But if we can transcend beyond that, we can also see the beauty. And when we can be anchored in that transcendental field of awareness, then we are available to that, and we can hold our space and be a conscious influence of peace in the relative field, and the law goes as within, so without. So all that occurs in when we are looking for a progressive change, we have to realize all progressive change is bottom up, never top down, you see. And there is no time where compassion is not relevant, and it is more relevant in times of intensity. In times of intensity, our peace, our presence is the most powerful antidote that we can bring to the table, By remaining in that state of resistance, in the state of fear, we are adding to the fire. We are adding fuel to the fire. So each and every one of us, instead of identifying with this sense of learned helplessness, this sense of victim identity, we have to realize that each and every one of us is a conscious creator, and we are the positive influencer. We have the capacity to influence and alter what's occurring in the relative field of reality just by the way we are. We don't all have to be on the street. If you're called to be, that's beautiful. But what we are all called to is to anchor ourselves at that level of being. And when we can live like that, and when we can show up in our silence, not practicing peace, but being peace, then that vibration starts to influence, and we have a ripple effect. What emerges when peaceful people start to come together, the emergent quality of that is a magnificent world. In the relative field of reality, challenge is always going to be there. And as far as I see it, all challenge is an invitation for growth, progressive growth. And all progressive growth is always, always, always in the direction of unity, never in the direction of separation. Challenges are inevitable. Suffering is self-created.
Thank you, Anand. This is such a great question. I would like to hear, Bhavani, you're in the States right now and you're in the midst of it all. How do you feel about this question?
Again, what a beautiful question, and what beautiful responses how we just received from Prince EA and from Anand. I think that the framing of the statement from separation to oneness itself gives a bit of a misconception, a misunderstanding, because of course we all experience ourselves separately, separate bodies, separate places. Even this group we're in. Yifat is in Israel, Anand is in Rishikesh, Chris is in Australia, Bruce and Manose are in California. I'm in Colorado. Prince EA is in St. Louis, I think. And we're all over the world, and we all experience separation in the terms of diversity. But the inherent oneness of our experience is, as both Anand and Prince EA were saying, is this ability to recognize the peace that pervades all of us, which is the same, the life force, the love we experience. We have this choice to choose love and peace in the face of conflict, diversity, challenge. We have this choice to bring this energy ourselves, not to be, as Anand said, not to be a victim, not to be overwhelmed by the apparent diversity and conflict that we experience in our external world, but to look at where we can find that oneness, that centeredness of the peace within us. And as Anand said, bottom up, bring it forth and notice the kindness, the love, the compassion, little acts of kindness, bringing more love and consciousness into our personal lives through our actions, our presence, our heart opening, our choice of choosing love and peace right here, right now, the truth of who we all really are.
Thank you so much. We're going to go to our next question because we have so many to cover today. But thank you so much for sharing. That was a very profound opening sharing and a great question to open the day with. So this question is from Lawrence, who just came in via Facebook. What are the ways to reconnect after an experience of disconnection? What are the ways to reconnect after an experience of disconnection? Dr. Bruce, would you like to start this one?
I would be honored to start this one with you, Chris. I so very much appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of this community, because we're trying to do, we're not trying to, we are doing what we would like to suggest people do, and that is we are really separate but community people. We are all working together in harmony here. And the issue is, what can we do about this? And I'd like to bring in a story of a microcosm that actually is a reflection of the macrocosm that we're in. And it really relates back to the Arab Spring. And Tunisia is the country where the Arab Spring actually erupted. And what happened is they threw out a leader that was just, a corrupt situation, as we're all familiar with. But then I said, well, then what happened? And I said, well, they started with no government, and they were going to say, so how are we going to build a government? And then the separation came in, where the conventional people in their parliament were in polar groups. And for a year, back and forth, they were polarized. I want this, we want that. And they were fighting each other. No progress was made. After 1 year, another election occurred, and this time they introduced a lot of women into the parliament, which changed the dialogue completely. And I said, well, what was profoundly important about that change? And it was this. Up until that time, the parliament was in opposition with each other. We want this, you want that, we're fighting, we're polarized, we can't get together. But when the women came in, they changed the conversation. And I think it's the most important insight that we can bring forward, because how effective it was. And that was when the women came in, they said, you know, you guys have been arguing for a year against your polar view and this polar view, all that. And they said, let's try something different. And they said, instead of fighting over where we differ, why don't we build a government where we first start to agree? What are the things we agree on? Don't bring up the things we fight on. What are the things we agree on? And once they started to do that, they started to be able to come into a communication with each other. Communication is the foundation of community. And what happened was they came together in such a way and worked on the things that they both agreed on, rather than focusing on the dissension. And in the result, they created a constitution for a government that is apparently one of the best constitutions in the entire world, and they received a Nobel Prize for writing that. I said, well, what happened? Well, they started off with polar fighting, not getting anywhere, because they focused on the differences. And what we're really talking about now is, look, no matter how different we look, we share the same common foundations. And if we start building from the common foundations, we can then at least hold this thing together and then work on our issues. But if you start on conflict, it will never heal. It will never be able to come together. So the time is, let's start figuring out the things we all agree on. Because basically the fundamentals of life, both oppositional parties always have a fundamental agreement. That is the first step. It worked in Tunisia, created the most magnificent constitution of any country in the world. From what? A polar fight that never led anywhere for an entire year. Nothing happened until they decided to avoid polarity and let's work on where's our common ground. And when we start building from common ground, a new civilization will manifest from that. So yeah, I look in the papers myself like you and see, oh, okay, this side's fighting and this side's fighting. It's like, we can't get an adhesion when there's fighting. You can only find the common ground. And I think that Global Days of Unity are a reflection of that mission and that direction for all of us. Global Days of Unity are, let's come together in all the diversity we perceive, which is an illusion, but come together and recognize we are one unity. And if I could just close very quickly, I'm sorry I'm taking a little time here, but an interesting vision is this. When a human is created, an egg is fertilized by a sperm. That's a one cell. That's a single cell. And that cell divides. And at first, all the cells that divide are all exactly the same. But then guess what? They start to differentiate into different cell types: liver, muscle, bone, brain, skin, all of these. And I go, well, that looks like, the diversity and everything's all separated. I go, it appears that way, but it came out of unity, and it is only expressed through unity. You can't take one group of cells out of the body and say, nope, we don't agree with that group of cells, because now the unity is broken. And that health and harmony is not the illusion of diversity, but it's the recognition of we all came from the same place and we're all going to the same destination. And Global Days of Unity is one of the strongest incentives for us to come together and recognize first community, then we'll build the rules for that community. Thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Bruce. I love that phrase, community, coming together in unity. And that's the Global Days of Unity. So beautifully said. Thank you, Bruce. Yifat, would you like to share on that question?
Wow, it's a beautiful question. Thank you. And also the first one and all the answers. I fully agree, first of all, and exciting to hear what Bruce just said about the focus of the agreement to find the common places. And I think this is exactly what I feel about this question that asks how can we unite after we are reunite, after we are separate. And I do believe that it starts within ourselves, like everything else. So when we feel disconnect, first let's start to find the things in ourselves that make us connect to ourselves, to the divine, to reality, to clean things that make us to feel separate. And in reality, you know, we were talking about the state. Also here in Israel, there is a reality that everything is shining now, the big unity and also the big separation. There is a very old and ancient like separation between religious. I say like because it's an illusion, as we exactly this theme and this call talking about. And also now there is about political views. And the whole idea is to find what put us common, like when we share joy, so we are connected and we are moving together as whole body. And when we find the pain, when we resonate pain with the other person, so it doesn't matter if we think right side political or left side, or if we Jew or Arab, we are staying in the same land. And mother, for example, mother is a mother is a mother. It doesn't matter where she's coming from. And if she has a son that doesn't feel good, she can totally resonate with another mother that maybe her son is also in the same position, and they are both mothers. One can be Jewish and one can be Arab. One can be, now in Israel, there is a lots of situation between right and left political side. And many people of us, as the beautiful people that were talking before me, were saying that as when we get more and more and more who holding this consciousness of finding the common with each other and holding this frequency of unity, of oneness. So when we look on the person next to us and we smile at him and we come with compassion, we can see the person that standing in front of us. And when we come with peace in ourselves, we can see in good eyes and with piercing eyes on the person that's standing in front of us. And we can see him or her as a person and not as a title of religious, of political views, of age, of culture he came from. And this is my answer to this question, to find the inner peace within ourselves, and then to find slowly and big, small and big actions to find the common things we have with the person that's standing next to us. And then we will see that we are the same. We are the same, from the same family, the human family, without titles. Thank you.
Thank you, Yifat. So beautiful. I'd like to, Manose, that's a great question. Again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that last question. What are the ways to reconnect after an experience of disconnection?
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody. Powerful. Wow. I moved to States about 20 years ago. And as an immigrant here, at the same time, I've traveled all the time. I've been traveling all over the world for the last 20 years. And I just put my foot in and I'll just leave again. But it is strong time, I must admit. It's a really strong time to, just browse the news or see something. But my experience to come to peace and love and connect with the disconnection, you're the first to connect with the disconnection. You're agreeing with, oh, I'm disconnected. To see that. And from there, like for example, I'll give you my example. One time I was in Sweden, in Stockholm, and there was a baker, very fancy bakery shop, and I was going to go in. There was a big line, and most of the people were there. They are light-skinned people, Swedish people, beautiful people, and the person who behind the cashier who is selling the cakes and the amazing bakery, I can feel her energy when I'm about to go in. I can almost feel that she's stopping me not to come in. I can feel it. I can feel in her body, and but I really wanted to have that cake. That looks so good. I really wanted to have that coffee and cake, and that's a cold Swedish climate. It's colder, and my reaction towards that is, I just went from my bottom of my heart, and all I did is just look at her eyes and give that gentle smile. And I promise, I'm not making this up. The energy of that person who is selling the cake, she changed just like that. It was a miracle. And that reminded me, wow, it's possible. It's possible. You can totally believe in love. You can totally rely on harmony. You can totally rely on unity. Yeah, when survival kicks in, yes, you want to guard. All the guards will come around. You will feel the separation. You will feel there are going to be, people going to start a civil war. I don't believe that. I think the people here, there's way more wise and amazing people live here as well. So, personally, no matter what happens up here, the greater love is always there. It's always there. It's so deep and so beautiful. Amazing grace. When you hear that song, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. That's it. That's it. That's it. We all just want to be loved. We all just want to be cared. We all just want to be hugged. And there's going to be people always, they'll tell you, I'll do better. I'm going to do better for you. Oh. And you know what's better for yourself. You don't need to rely on others. There's no others. So I feel whenever I have illusion of a separation, I would say, illusion of disconnection, I go to my music, which I'm very fortunate. As a little boy, I started playing on a bamboo flute, and that really helped me. The music, not as a performance. I'm not trying to please you or anything. It's music to connect me in a deeper place. The music that I can connect to the deeper sound, that amazing grace, that joy, that silence, the palpable silence. Then I can make a right decision. Then I can make a right decision. Then I can be in a pure 120% in love. And open my arms. But if you feel, there is a goddess actually, we just started Navaratri. It's a very auspicious time in India and Nepal, Lakshmi. Lakshmi represents the abundance. And if you have a Lakshmi in your heart, there is just love and light and unity. So I pray for every being in America and every country. May love Lakshmi be with them in this time. Namaste.
Thank you, Manose. I love that story of being at the shop, going for your piece of cake. It reminds me of another great saying, we are all hardwired for love. Humanity is actually hardwired for love. And for some reason, a virus has gotten into the system, created a breakdown in the system. And sometimes you just need that, what we call the great reset. And it's so simple. What you did was a reset of that love frequency, and you brought that lady back into the field of which is our true nature.
Exactly. And it's so sweet that she was so sweet to me, I tell you. She even added extra cream in my coffee. It's so nice. That's all this fear. I could have just got, I could have left. I could have just felt my disconnected, and I would have a hard time all day, but I did not. Instead, I trusted I could overcome this obstacle. So I'm very grateful that I could.
And so simple, right?
So simple. You don't need to go out there. You just need to, the intention itself.
I know. It's so powerful and so simple. I mean, imagine multiplying that across the world, just so simply, each person's life every day. I mean, it happens, right? But and I think it's growing. I think that's where the duality is right now. The only reason we're having this discussion on separation is because we're actually, I believe we're moving to a greater space of the truth of oneness.
Exactly.
We're actually confronting the illusion of separation, not feeling separated. But that's great. Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you all so much. This is amazing conversation we're having. So here's another one. Another question just came in from Ben, who's from Darwin, Australia. Hi, Ben, out there, if you're listening. Do we need separation to understand true oneness? I'd like to begin with Anand. What are your thoughts on this, Anandji?
I think only the finite expression of infinity can long for infinity. So
I think we lost. Are we back?
Okay. India happened. Power just went off.
It was a good point, though. It was over the stop. We went to the infinite. We went to the infinite.
Exactly. We went into that great void for a while. So from in the yoga, there's these two terms: Brahman, which is the absolute unified self, and Atman, which is the Brahman expressing itself within space-time. And it is only within space-time that there is individuality. And this individuality longs for the timeless experience. The timeless is never lost. It is just we have to dial in our awareness to a certain level of perception, and time disappears, you see. So that is the great play, the great Leela. Why is there anything at all? In the Chandogya Upanishad says there is anything at all because of the great longing in the womb of the infinite to experience itself back in finite shape and form, to again discover itself back. And that's the great love affair. And that's what, we have been talking about this, that as you said, we are hardwired for love. For all love flows in the direction of self, all love. And so is all hatred. All hatred is ultimately self-hatred. It is the self which is struggling within itself, bubbles out with hatred, bubbles out with politics of hatred. It is individuals in a state of conflict. An individual, a leader who is in a state of love, in a state of harmony, will not manipulate people's differences. will rather bring together and speak to people what unifies people. And of course, there's going to be differences because that's diversity. We are living in a field of diversity. Even in the bush of rose, there is the flower and the thorn, and they both play their relevant role in that plant. And so the differences have a role to play in the field of diversity. So the experience of individuality is ultimately what creates the whole play. If there is no individuality within space-time, there is no longing for the experience of unity. So from this experience of the I amness, where the I amness seems isolated, is the prerequisite for the experience of love. You see, for the rose to be loved, there has to be the experiencer outside of the rose. Even though rose is the expression of that colorless sap, as the leaf is the expression of that colorless sap. And the rose ultimately is within the consciousness state of the observer. All rose exists is within the consciousness state of the observer. But for that state of appreciation of the rose and its beauty to occur, there has to be this so-called distinction between the rose and the seer of the rose. Even though the rose and the seer of the rose exist in that one unified field, one dimension. So it is a very deep realization for us to have that the existence of diversity is an expression of unity. The experience of plurality is the expression of unity. And without this expression of plurality, there cannot be even a conversation of unity. For this conversation of unity to occur, there has to be that Parabrahman, that transcendental being expresses in these magnificent facets, different painting itself. So we are all ultimately an activity of the infinite. Everything, this body is an activity of the infinite. So is the sun and the moon. We are all an activity of that infinite field. And this expression of the infinite field within space-time shows up as this temporal self, which experiences itself as separate, with an invitation, with a longing to discover itself back. And that is our longing to love, to connect. From a young age, you see a child and he's looking for his mother. And you look at a puppy, I just got these puppies, and I mean, it's incredible. You see, they're just all hardwired for love, and that's all they're looking for. Every creature you meet the cows. In India, we are blessed to have these animals walking on the road. So you can interact and you see the cows, and every being responds to that love, because all love is moving in the direction of self, and we are all ultimately looking for ourself. And that's what keeps the Leela going. Without plurality, there is no unity.
Thank you, Anand. I'd like to ask Princey A to share some thoughts on this question. Do we really need separation to really understand oneness?
Do we need separation to really understand oneness? Yeah, of course, because if we were oneness, there wouldn't be any thought of separation. So I think the question is self-evident. The answer is kind of in there, and it is right. It's this. I think it was Byron Katie said, when you argue against reality, you lose. When we can accept the way things are, then we're in alignment with truth, with what is. So it's an interesting question. I think getting deeper into the question is where I want to go. And I want to actually touch on something that was said about how we're hardwired. And I think we are love, but we're actually hardwired for survival. When you really study the human brain wants to survive, and so we want to defend, we want to live, we want to be here, right? And I think it was over 4,000 years of recorded history, only 200 have seen no war. I think that was in a book called Lessons in History. And so when you look at that, it would seem as though peace is nothing more than an interval between war. And so this is where we are. So I feel as though we are hardwired for survival, but where we can go, the possibility of where we can get to is a place of love and beingness. But this thing up here, this brain, I mean, we all know the brain naturally leans negative. It's a survival mechanism throughout evolution, just like a deer. You ever seen a deer stop in headlights? If you think about why it does that, it's because the way it evolved is so that it stops, so it doesn't trigger the predator's motion detector, right? So it stops. But you put a deer in a busy city, put this survival tactic in a busy city with cars, we know what happens, right? We get a lot of cars hitting deers. So where am I going with this? Well, we put this negative leaning brain into the world today, it doesn't work anymore, right? So we have to go to the next step, right? Some people call it from Homo sapiens to Homo spiritus, the spiritual human being. And so this is where I think we can get to. But the brain's nature, and this is what we have to get past, this ego, right? This edging God out, which had its run. But now I think, as we see in potentially in this new presidential election, the run may be over, and now we need something new. The highest of our angels to come through, and it starts with each and every one of us. The only revolution that I believe counts is the individual revolution, and when enough individuals wake up, that's when something new happens. That's when a new door opens into a new dimension. What will we find there? Let's find out.
Thank you so much, Prince EA. Profound. We're going to move on to another question. This one just came in from Edson Gonçalves from Brazil. And Edson says, our conscious is polluting and can also be a filter. When I become a filter, what happens to pollution? What happens to the pollution that goes through me? So I think Edson's saying, when we open up and become a filter for this pollution, what's happening to this pollution that's actually going through? That's my understanding. But I'd love you all to share. Bhavani, I'd love you to share with this one. What do you think? What comes through? Oh, muted.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could you read that question again? I'm not sure I really understood.
Sure. Yes. He says our consciousness can pollute, and it can also be a filter. It's an interesting question. That's why I was really interested to find out what he was meaning, to see what the panel thought about this. But when I become a filter, what happens to the pollution that's going through me?
Well, I can't really say that I agree with the statement that our consciousness can pollute. So I'm not really sure what he means by that.
That's what I was. Yes. Well, my feeling is, I suppose, being in a negative mindset, is that a pollution, or is that being a destructive pollutant, or is that actually enhancing the field? Yeah, it's an interesting question.
I mean, I think that first of all, we need to understand, what do we actually mean by consciousness? And I think that's a really good point, because we use this word a lot, all of us who are in this sort of path of, wanting to be in service of a higher consciousness, and of a world in which there's abundance for all, and a world of peace, a world of love, a world of unity, a world of respect and compassion and forgiveness. And consciousness, to me, is a state of awareness. It's a open field. It is not. It is it's the experience of our understanding that I am, and that experience is so pure and so free, and it's not taintable. It's not taintable. because it's the essence of our pure consciousness, of our original being. And so what I can say about when things move through us, they're illusions. When you wake up from a dream, when you're sleeping at night and you're having a dream and you wake up, you realize there was no part of the dream that was real. It was all a dream. And to that extent, any part of the manifestation, of the illusion that is moving through us, it has no place to land. That nothing actually lands in consciousness. Consciousness is the awareness of the experience of all that is from the place of pure, untouchable innocence and love and peace. So that is my experience. And I really want to say another thing about this, the Global Days of Unity and our community here in UPLIFT, is that we're all in an exploration together. You know, we're all of us here on this panel. We're so happy to share our experience, our thoughts, our investigations, and we welcome you to do the same. We welcome you to investigate within yourself and find the truth that resonates in the deepest part of your being. And I just want to share that I feel so grateful to have met my teacher, Papaji. One of the things he said over and over again, he said, don't believe anybody, don't believe anything, don't believe me, find out for yourself. And I just want to pass this message on because I feel that this is so important for us in this time of transition that we're going through, that we learn to trust ourselves and we check in with ourselves and we don't disempower ourselves by just giving our power away to someone else, no matter how wonderful. So many of these things here that are said, everything is so beautiful with what everyone has said, from Prince EA's perspective to Bruce's perspective to Anand's perspective, Manose, Yifat, myself, and we're sharing with you. We're inviting you to investigate and find out for yourself. Find out the truth that resonates within you. So I just shared my experience, my perception, and I welcome you to investigate for yourself. Thank you.
Beautiful. That's a great, yeah, thank you so much. Bruce, what's your feeling on this question?
The first thing that's really important, and I want to step back just to the previous question, just because there's something really interesting about it, and that was, do we need to feel separation to understand unity? And I would have to say yes, and for a reason is this. And I'll give an analogy that when my daughter was growing up, of course, I wanted to tell her how fire could burn you and fire could hurt you, and to be very careful of fire. And you can say all those words and the child will take them in. But until that child gets a burn, it doesn't have any meaning. You need to feel it. So, you know, I had her move her finger really closer to a flame very slowly until she could start to feel it. And once she felt it, she says, now I know what it's all about. Separation, we don't want to live in it, but I think it's necessary to experience it, to say, that's not what we really want. And I need to taste it to know that I don't want it. And that's important part, because it says things out there are distasteful. And so we go back to the question of consciousness and filtering out that distasteful stuff. And the reality is this: consciousness is creating our life experience. This is a fact of quantum physics, the most valid science on the planet, that consciousness is manifesting our life experiences. And as a result, then what the nature is, we can alter our experiences using consciousness. And so, for example, we just talked about burning ourselves. Imagine this: you can walk across hot coals if your consciousness is in the right place. If you're in the middle of that walk and then you all of a sudden have doubt about what you're going to do, you'll burn instantly right at that moment. And so why I'm saying this is so important is that consciousness can filter out the things in our world that would upset us and actually take away the character or quality of our life at some point. And I say, why is it relevant? Because consciousness is a vibration, and the world's experiences are vibrations. And when two vibrations come together, you can either cause them to be enhanced, good vibes, constructive interference. Two things come together and the energy feels really great, or two things can come together and the energy feels really bad vibes. And the significance is this: the outcome of any incoming signals to us are based on consciousness, because we can enhance signals that we really like, but we can also cancel signals that are threatening to us. So walking across hot coals, even people that are what I call testify and that God supports them, and that belief that God really takes care of them, can drink strychnine poison without any harmful effects. Now that's a really negative environment, but what's the consequence? Consciousness can cancel that. Consciousness can cancel being burned walking across on hot coals. Consciousness is so powerful. So it's a filter mechanism. Interesting last fact about this is astrology is an energy field. There's a reality to it. It's astrophysiology. We respond to energy fields. But a very important part about that is when you read an astrological forecast and it says this could go bad, this could go good, whatever it is, real true esoteric astrologers, the ones that are academic astrologers, they recognize the most important thing about this consciousness that we're talking about, and that is this: the more conscious a person becomes, the less predictable they are in astrology. Meaning astrology is energy fields coming in, but as you become more conscious, you can cancel energy fields or you can enhance energy fields. And so basically consciousness can shape the good and the bad feelings. We can eliminate the struggle with consciousness. And I say that's really important because we buy things as real. Yeah, hot coals are hot. I'm going to burn myself. I go, except consciousness can change that. And between the placebo effect, where good thoughts and good consciousness can enhance health, or the nocebo effect, where negative consciousness can actually manifest any disease and cause us to die. The experience that we have in our body is really controlled by the consciousness that we're broadcasting. And so consciousness can be a filter. It can filter out things we don't want, but it can also take things that are coming in and enhance them to make them better. So the message is basically this: we are evolving, and the major emphasis of this evolution is expansion of consciousness. Because once we understand what quantum physics has been telling us for 80 years now, is that consciousness is creating our experiences. If we own this, then we can use the consciousness. If you disregard it, then you've lost your power. So we're facing an evolution, and all the people that I'm with on this panel, who I know, are also so seriously involved with understanding the idea of broadcasting a consciousness of harmony and peace and community, because that brings things together rather than broadcasting fear and dissension and separation, which causes it all to fall apart. This evolution is come together now. Consciousness will manifest our experiences when you start to recognize the power of your consciousness and then exercise that consciousness. Then we become very powerful people, and that's what evolution is calling upon us to do now as a civilization. Let's exercise the consciousness of harmony and community and unity, because that brings us back together again. Last thing, you're not a single entity. You're made out of 50 trillion cells, and your health is a reflection of community. When this breakdown in community, there's a breakdown of the cells, and then disease starts. And health brings the harmony. All the cells are working together, and a body that's in full harmony is an exquisite experience. And this is what evolution is calling on us. Come on, folks, time to wake up to who we really are, co-creators of the world, and knowing that we could all do placebo consciousness and generate health and happiness for all.
Thank you, Bruce. just an honor to be a co-creator with you in the field. Thank you so much. So love you so much. We're going to have moved to a new part of the session, which is quite exciting, because if we have about 200 people who have joined our Zoom webinar, and right now we're going to introduce somebody who would like to join, called June, and she's going to ask the question herself. So we'd just like to introduce June. Is she coming on?
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, there we are, June. Hi, June. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
And where are you from?
Oh, I live in Olympia, Washington. It's not only the place of the capital, but it's also the place of some gods who live here.
Great. And what question would you like to ask?
I will ask it. I want to make sure I read it from my notes so that I don't skip a word. I would like someone to address intention and suggest practical ways to embrace and integrate it as a tool when faced with violence.
Great question. Great question. I think we'd like to start with Anand. Would you like to start that question?
Namaste, June. Nice to see you. Nice to connect to you and your gods at Olympia, Mount Olympia.
Yes.
You know, when we are looking at consciousness, one of the very practical and applicable experience of consciousness is attention. So in yoga, we speak of chitta, pragya, and dharana, meaning consciousness, the knowing quality of consciousness being awareness, and focused awareness as attention. And if we really want to understand intention, we must first cultivate attention, the capacity to be attentive to that which we want to grow, for that is the law of nature. Whatever you give your attention to will grow. But what is our common experience in a state of untrained nervous system, a nervous system which is not being cultured, is that our attention is constantly fluctuating. Content arises within the field of our consciousness as thoughts, internal content as thoughts, emotions, feelings, and also so-called objective content, which we are constantly bombarded with in the extended field. And we find that the attention is constantly moving. And so we find ourselves to be the only species which can be sitting in a perfectly safe environment, very healthy, surrounded by trees and, you know, maybe nice food, and be still driving ourselves insane just by what we are giving attention to in the field of our consciousness. So if we want to really harness the supreme capacity of intention, the word in Sanskrit used for that is sankalpa, is first we must culture our attention. So we require the practice of meditation. I would like to invite the whole world to meditate. Meditate. And meditation simply is, we can begin to understand meditation as simply as culturing our attention, mastering our attention, to be able to draw our attention to that which we want to grow. So if we can just start with becoming aware of the breath and ultimately taking our attention to that field of silence. Now, when we can cultivate a certain awareness of silence, that stillness within us, and then when we plant our intention in it, that intention has ripples. It goes to the subconscious mind, and then it stays with us. If we do not have the capacity to cultivate that dimension of stillness within us, then our intention stays at the surface level of thought. So we find, even though our intention is to be happy and to be peaceful, but nobody wakes up in the morning and prays, oh, my intention today is to be unhappy and stressed out. Everybody starts the day, their intention is, or their hope, disguised intention is hope, is to be happy, that today may I be happy. But happiness is on our own making. But we find our attention is not united with our intention. So we must learn to culture our attention, learn to anchor to that deeper field of silence, and then use that incredible power of intention, because intention is coming from a deepest part of yourself, not from a surface fluctuating mind, but from a deepest part. And when we intend from that place, and when we have the capacity to keep our attention with our intention, we start to see magic happen. The intention starts to manifest. And intention initiates action, and action initiates experience. So, but that intention, when it is anchored at a deeper level of being, it permeates the entirety of our mind. Then we don't find a split between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. We find it, this unified experience of intention. Our intention has the backing of our being. So that is why we must start our day always with stillness. We must meditate. That's the most important ritual we must have. We must have energetic practices. And then we plant our intention. In that still environment, we create the environment of stillness, and then we plant our intention in that environment of stillness. So we have ripples which are created, and we can be living intention. Hope that answers your question, June.
Thank you, Anand. Yifat, would you like to follow on?
Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead.
Wow, it's a beautiful question, and it's amazing because the power of intention, it's a whole subject by itself. We can talk hours just about the beautiful of the power of intention. And I will relate our subject here about the oneness, especially from separation to oneness, into the power of intention. I hope I will. I hope I understood correctly the question. I will love to hear from you after. I will say what I feel and what I think, if it's resonant with you, the beautiful woman that asked it. So the power of intention is exactly as Anand said, that the focus of our awareness is exactly what we direct our arrow to. And when we put intention to something, we collect all our energetic field and thoughts and emotion, and even if we do it without awareness, but when we put the intention, we collect ourselves and direct it into a certain direction. And then if our intention is good, so good will come up from it. And if our intention is in a mess, we will see like a messy results. If we will focus very hard to understand and clearly weigh our intention, and then we direct it, we can see a very focused. It's like a mirror. Everything we are putting our intention to is what we will receive. It's the reflection. So it's like to pay attention to our intention, and we are the creators, the co-creators here in this reality. So when we practice this intention, as the beloved family here of mine said before me, when we practice of good intentions, of good energy, this is what we resonate to the field. This is what we resonate to our life, to our reality. And there is a big and huge power of influence of this intention. For example, if we want to receive something and we are fully focused in it and pay fully attention into it in ourselves, and we can do even little rituals, like to light a candle with this intention, or to meditate with certain intention, or just being, but with certain intention. And if I take it to the oneness, So if we will practice the intention to find oneness in everything, to find oneness within ourselves, and to find the similarity and the oneness with everything that exists, other people, plants, animals, synchronicity, everything. When we put this intention in ourselves, this is when we can also resonate synchronicity. We will synchronize with life, because this is our intention from the beginning. And it's important to know that it's like a projector of light. Every place we put our intention, this is the plate we will put our light on. We will see. If we will put our intention into dark places, this is what we will see. But also we can play with that. It's a whole game. It's a whole play. We can put intention to lighten darkened places in ourselves, in places. We can go and walk with intention of make a bright day to all of us. So this is what we will do. So it's like a whole huge world of intention, and it's all matter what we do with it and how we practice goodness and oneness in our intended life. And if I can add something small from the earlier question about do we need to feel a separation? Can I, Chris?
Of course.
Yeah. So I also believe that the answer is yes. It's like that the dark define the light, like with the shadow and the dark define light. Otherwise, we couldn't see anything, but the dark and the matter define the spirit. So maybe as well as here, the separation can also define the unity. But then again, as my friends here said, it's coming back from there. It's like to experience it, to master it even, and then all the time to seek for the unity and to the oneness and to be part of something. And it's like when you were talking, it's reminded me like an orchestra, that each one and one of the tools of the instruments is fully with himself, like the flute and the guitar and the piano. They are separate tools, but together they are orchestra, and they can tune themselves and they can go with the same melody, like the collective intelligence that we are huge orchestra in it. So it's like to experience the separation, to master our own tool as like individuals, and then to play with the whole field that we are part of it, like a drop in the whole ocean, and to move together. And this is what nice to feel home with both ways, and then to seek all the time for unity. Thank you.
Thank you, Yifat. Thank you, June. And we're going to have another guest come in from our global community. We have Nubia from Quito, Ecuador, coming in live right now. We'd like to welcome Nubia.
Hi.
Hi, Nubia. Welcome. So great that you can be here from Quito, Ecuador.
Yes, my first time joining live. I've been invited via email for a while now, but this is the day, and well, here I am.
So wonderful. And what would you like? What's your question?
Well, I know that we're told many times that we are disconnected from our true nature or divine nature, because as we grow up, we are taught the rules of this society, right? The social, financial, and political system we're living in teaches us what's right and wrong and how do we have to live our lives. So my question is, how do we connect with our true self while we're in this world and we still have to like get a job, pay the rent, buy the food that we have to eat, and still be judged for what's right and wrong, right? Can spirituality in these being co-creators of the field can be translated into our everyday life inconveniences, responsibilities, and life in general?
Great question. I'd like to, Manose, would you like to start this one? Would you like to share your thoughts?
Namaste, Nubia. Namaste. Yes, yes, it's very challenging, and I totally hear you. You know, I grew up in Kathmandu, Nepal. Very similar situation. I was not, my family was not very, very poor, but it was always a challenge because some point my family wanted to get something to be happy more. They were looking for something that somebody taught them. Oh, maybe you should get a TV. So they want to buy a TV. It was very expensive. They couldn't afford it. No, they wanted a color TV, not the black and white. That would be much more. So we are in those places that we are keep looking to buy something to make us feel special, make us feel connected, and and we are in a part of that chain because we're living in that chain. We are part of the, I have to go buy food in the store also. I have to, things I have to surround it because we are part of this whole matrix. But for me to realize I am part of that matrix, but I'm still my individual self. I totally govern myself, my joy, my love. I am totally in power for that. That's really important for me. And music, when I chant, when I sing, when I play flute, magic. Have you ever sang with your family? Just a couple notes. Before the food, before the dinner, you say, thank you, food. Thank you, Mama, for cooking. Thank you, Papa, for bringing home food. And put that in the mouth. That tastes more different. I promise you that it's very different than the you just eat. So what tells us is right now, for me, I'm telling my experience, each teacher is here. They are, I'm so grateful what you are talking. It's amazing. We come here to experience duality, our body. How we are here to experience all this. We come here to experience this lila, and it's so beautiful that how we can learn and same time teach our future generation that love is possible. We can live what we find, if I look right now in my garden, I see this beautiful flowers are growing and this beautiness, the sun is setting. I would like to live more flowers before I live. That's my intention. Even though it's hard, it's my dharma. That's the dharma. I would love more prayer flags in my garden. Just how Anand is so looking beautiful. So that's how I see it. Yes, it's challenging. It's hard, but it's great. Namaste.
Thank you, Manose. Prince EA, would you like to share some thoughts?
Yes, I'd love to. There's a great man, civil rights leader named Howard Thurman, and Howard Thurman said, do not ask what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who come alive. It all starts with you. I think a lot of times in spiritual circles, we leave yoga on the yoga mat. But truly, we need to take it into every aspect of our lives, every aspect at our job, with our kids, with our coworkers, at the market. Meditation isn't something you do for 20 minutes a day. It's a way of being, a way of living. So many of us get caught writing to-do lists, but we never write the to-be lists, right? So it's so important to write that to-be list, because I feel that each and every one of us has such a unique perspective. We've gone through experiences that nobody else has. And it's so important for us to serve. I think service is really why we're here. You know, the word hero actually comes from the root. I think when you look at the etymology of the word hero, it actually means servant. So we have to be a hero in our own lives. We have to serve ourselves first and then bring our gift to the world. I think I understand your question in that sense, and let me know if I'm giving an appropriate response. Yeah. Okay. It's so important to really, while we're here, not waste this gift, you know, that we have inside of us. The ancient Stoics used to sit with a skull on their desk. You've probably seen them in movies. And a lot of people get freaked out at this skull because they don't know the meaning behind it. But the meaning behind this skull is actually in Latin. It means memento mori, remember that you will die. And so this skull was a reminder for them to live fully right here, right now, and to bring that gift to the world while we're here for these 60, 70, 80, 90 years in this dream. And it will be a sin to not do it. You know, the word sin, I love words, as you can tell. The word sin comes from a word, it originally was used in archery, and it meant to miss your mark. And one of the greatest sins, I believe, is to miss your mark in life, to not bring that gift out, to not answer that call that you were given. Because when you do have the courage to trust fall with life, you will be caught. And it'll be beautiful because it's just waiting for you. To offer the world, and the world will never be the same because of you.
Thank you, Prince CA. Amazing. I'd like to share that. I just love the way you always hit the bullseye.
Thank you.
Nubia, thank you so much for joining us.
Could I just share something with Nubia, if I might?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I just want to say, Nubia, you started your question by saying that we've been told that we're disconnected from our true nature. Am I correct? Did you start this?
Yes. I feel like for me, I will talk about my personal experiences, that I didn't know that I was capable of creating the field. I didn't even know it existed. So I was taught about religion and about God that is on heaven and in heaven, and it's far away from me, and I have to please so that he loves me. And so it's completely different to, empowering yourself and knowing that you are the one who can create your life. That is something I'm new to this, actually. I just started up because of the quarantine to open my mind to new ideas.
That's really beautiful. That's really beautiful. And I just want to suggest that you hold that question, whether or not you believe it. Remember before I was saying, you don't necessarily, do you actually believe all those things that have been said to you? Ask yourself. And I would just say, as Anand suggested, that we meditate every morning and ask yourself, is that true? Do you believe that you have been, that you are literal, that you aren't you, that you are separated from your true nature? To inquire, who am I? Am I separated from my true nature? Am I not present? Am I not I am? Am I not myself? And ask yourself, because you will find the answers within yourself, especially after all that's been told to you. Question, is it true? Is it true for you? Is it true for you? And from where you're standing now, my sense is that you will recognize that that's not true, that you've never been separated from your true nature, and you never can be separated from your true nature.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavani. So beautifully said. We have time for one more of our global community. It's Sophie from Mauritius has joined us today. Welcome, Sophie.
Namaste to everyone. Thank
Welcome,
you.
Sophie. Nice to have you join us.
Thank you. So my question is, how trauma causes separation in the body and separation outside of us? Thank you.
How does trauma create separation in the body and separation outside of us? Wow, great question. Bruce, would you like to start this one? Bruce is muted.
Oh, yeah, just repeat the question for me so I get it again.
Yes. So how trauma causes separation in the body and separation outside of us?
How? Okay, Chris, I just have a problem with that. How, the first part, just how shall...
How does trauma create
Trauma,
separation in the
trauma,
body? Trauma.
Ah, yeah.
Also drama, but also trauma.
Okay. Okay, so again, the question is, how does trauma just
create separation in the body?
Yeah.
And separation outside of us.
Yeah. Trauma, we've mentioned it before, someone mentioned before, I think it was Prince EA, that the fact is that we're all designed with what is still called the biological imperative. And that is built into every organism from bacteria up to humans. And it's the device that keeps us surviving. We survive. And when we have trauma, there's a tendency to pull yourself out of that reality and sort of like go deep into yourself. And a lot of people get so just traumatized, they don't do anything. They just like the deer in the headlights story again. But the idea about trauma is that it causes us to contract. And to eliminate the consequence of the trauma is you actually go out and expand again. So there's a tendency to protect ourselves so much that once you're closed off, you're separated from that community completely. So one of protection is a way of separating yourself from the threat. And yet trauma was a threat for sure. But once you understand the nature of that trauma, you can't live in the trauma, because if you keep the trauma playing in your head all the time, then by definition, you are not part of a community anymore. You are now hidden and protecting yourself in that trauma. So basically it says, yes, we go through trauma, but we have to come back and then put a conscious insight into what all this was, understand the nature of the trauma, but not let that trauma be the guiding principle of your life. Because if it is, then by definition, trauma will prevent you from extending outwards because it's contraction, staying inside. So trauma is something that we can learn, we experience, of course, but we can also learn to put it in its place, not live with it every day. Because if you do, then your whole life is now in a narrow focus of that trauma. What we have to do is, okay, we went through the trauma, understand the situation with the awareness of the whole idea is not to get back and repeat a trauma, but the idea of not living in that trauma is the most important thing in the world, because you can't be part of a community when you're hiding in a protection. And it's hard to learn, because a lot of people get a trauma and it guides them every day of their life, that trauma, that fear, that need for that protection. That is not fulfilling your life at all. So trauma is, yeah, we did it, we experienced it, but now it's necessary to put it in its place so we can move forward again and not use that as the guiding principle of our life. That's the most important insight from a trauma experience is own it. Yes, it happened, but then look and say, I don't need to do this again. We don't need to cross that bridge again. So trauma is the most important teaching experience.
Thank you, Bruce. Bhavani, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one, on the trauma question.
Could you repeat the second part?
Yes,
I'll
repeat the whole question.
I remember the first part, and then I was listening to Bruce and realized.
Yes, of course. How trauma. So the question is, it's a quick question, is how trauma causes separation in the body and separation outside us, and how do we deal with trauma?
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, and Bruce, thank you so much. That was beautiful, and Sophie. Thank you for asking this question. I have a really interesting experience that I would like to share about that. I was living in a house where the room that I would meditate in early in the morning actually had been renovated from a screened-in porch to a glassed-in room, and there was a break-in in that house, and as a result of that, I was told to turn on the alarm system in the house. So I turned on the alarm system at night, got up at 5 in the morning, made my tea, went into the room and forgot that I turned it on because I never used to turn it on. And I'd open the door and the alarm would go off. And it just, I mean, my whole system went into like chaos. And I ran back to the place, to the phone where I had to do this thing. And this happened a couple of times, like 3 times. And then I actually decided to stop turning the alarm on, which was great. But then what happened, this is what I want to share about that story, was because this was originally an outside door, it had a certain suction on it. And what happened for years, every time I opened that door and heard the sound of just the door opening, which was a very small sound, my whole body would actually go into a state of panic. And it took time. It took like 3 years for it actually to diminish. Till like now I can open the door and it doesn't, and I don't experience that at all, but for like 3 years. And so that was my experience of recognizing how trauma actually exists in the body, because I knew nothing was happening. I'd open the door and my body would kind of go like this. So I recognized, and like as Bruce was saying, I actually recognized there's no danger, there's no threat, but I could recognize that my body still had a response. And it was that recognition, that consciousness that everything's okay. And I just sent some love and peace to my body and everything was okay. And to carry that on also with what Bruce was saying is that if we take a moment, I want to do this a little bit backwards, but if we take a moment to think about how do we feel when we feel safe, when we feel fully peaceful and fully safe. And if we just take a moment to experience that, all of us, we can just take a moment and imagine just for one moment that we're perfectly safe. My experience is that when I'm feeling perfectly safe and really safe, there's no fear. There's no fear. And trauma is a type of fear. But when we're feeling fear, it's very tricky because fear tells us you need to be afraid in order to be safe. That's what fear tells us. Why else do we feel fear? Don't do this, don't go there, leave here. There have been fires around. I'm in Colorado. There have been fires very close by. People were, you have to evacuate, you have to evacuate. And I'm like, I'm not feeling that there's an issue here. And actually it's like went in the other direction. Because I'm not choosing fear, I'm choosing presence and awareness. But I'm not choosing fear. But I've really realized that when you follow fear, it tells you you have to follow fear. And that fear will take you to safety. But the truth is, it never takes you to safety because you can never feel safe when you're feeling fear. So again, it comes down to a choice, to look around. I'm sitting here, everything's okay. Like Anand was saying so beautifully before, we can be sitting in the most beautiful place. If we don't leave this moment, if we don't think about and imagine violence or something can go wrong, we're sitting here, everything's fine, and we're imagining, and we're traumatizing ourselves. We don't need to do that. That's our choice, and it takes courage and determination and practice to be in that place where we choose to find peace, the peace that passes understanding within ourselves, and it's always here. It's always here. And yes, there may be trauma in the body, like I expressed before. I open the door and my body's going like this, or a big sound goes off, or there's, billows of smoke down in the distance. But ask yourself, am I safe? Am I truly safe? Am I okay? Am I at peace? Can I stay in this present moment without imagining a future where everything goes wrong? Can I stay in this present moment and imagine a future where everything is going right? Like I think it was also Prince who said or maybe, I can't remember, maybe it was Bruce, but it was about that we're tend toward negative thinking. So we have to work on that because that's not who we want to be. Who do we want to be? How do we want to live? How we can choose. We are bigger than our traumas. We are much more powerful than our traumas. And I just wish that we can all together support each other in choosing love, choosing peace, choosing unity right here, right now. And it's always here and now. That's the other thing. It's never then, it's always now. And we can choose it right here, right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Bhavani. Beautiful. I just want to jump in really quick because I know we're almost out of time. I think everybody's walking around with traumas, hidden traumas, and it's up to us as individuals to have that awareness, like Anand, like Bhavani was saying, to see it first, to be still enough to see it. And at the end, what we want at the end is to eventually to see it as a gift, is to see, because trauma is a faulty process experience. And it takes obviously therapy, professional supervision to eventually transform or transmute that experience into one of a gift. But your body wants to protect you. And so it like Bhavani was saying, we have these fear mechanisms that arise. But again, the deer in the headlights, it just doesn't work in our daily life anymore. So we have to see it, and we have to try to transmute it. Heard an interesting statistic the other day. More soldiers actually die from suicide when they come home than actually on the battlefield. Wow. Our culture doesn't, we don't handle trauma in an appropriate way. And it's up to us. It's up to each and every person watching this feed to get the information, because it's behavioral, it's awareness, but it's also a physiological, neurological process that happens in the body that eventually, at the end of it all, we have to look at it and say thank you, because just those two words can transform everything. Thank you.
Profound words. Thank you so much, Princey A. And thank you, Sophie, for joining us and asking such a great question. We appreciate you being part of the community and joining us. Thank you. So we've come to the end of another amazing, wow, super profound session of the Uplift Pulse. And we just want to take a moment to thank you all, our beautiful global community, for joining us today. We had so many questions come in, and for all of you who just gave so many questions and just shared, we couldn't unfortunately answer every question, but interestingly, just to show how the field works, so many questions were similar in a lot of ways. So it's definitely present. Everybody is connected. And we'd like to end this session with Anand and Manose. And Anand, if you could just take us into a space, into a closing meditation. Many times we open with a meditation. So this weekend we decided to just close with a meditation where we can really just be present in the being of oneness. And then after Anand finishes his meditation, we'll have Manose just transition us with some beautiful flutes. So thank you.
Namaste, everybody. I invite you to roll your eyes inward and become aware of the flow of your breath. Effortless awareness of this breath. See how the whole breathes through you. As you first expressed in this body, you breathed your first, and the whole supported this breath. Allow your awareness to make contact with this unity through your breath. As you breathe in, the whole breathes. As you breathe out, the whole breathes. Through this most fundamental activity of your body, you are in a constant relationship to the whole. And see how, as you regulate and become aware of this breath, your experience of that dimension of stillness, underlying stillness, naturally increases. Drawing your awareness to that subtle dimension of life. Even though on the surface, at any given time, there can be a lot happening, yet at this dimension of being, there is supreme, loving, intelligent presence. You are this loving, intelligent presence. You are just the expression of this loving, intelligent presence. Affirm this within your own heart space. Let this be the dominant value within the field of your awareness. Let the drama of the surface fade in its significance. Let this be the dominant value. And then you will find your movement in the relative world much more effortless, as this reality of who you are is the dominant value within the field of your awareness. Stay with this. Don't feel any compulsion to leave from this awareness. There is nothing more important to know than this. There is nothing more important to achieve than this. There is nowhere more important to be than here. There is no need to become something else than this, the most intimate expression of yourself. See, this is all always available. Doesn't matter what goes on the material plane. This is always here. And when you allow yourself to fully arrive here in this presence, you will always find the material reality alter. For it is you who gives it meaning. For it is the experiencer that is the experience, the observer that is the observed, the dancer that is the dance. And I invite you to bring your hands into Namaskar Mudra, into your hearts. And pulsate a deep, intimate prayer, a deep, intimate intention. First within your own being, and then radiate it out into the field. So someone, somewhere, who is ready right now can receive it, can be touched by your vibration, your intention, your prayer. Please take a moment. And slowly take a deep breath in together, all of us. Let us stay in that breathless state. Stay. And slowly exhale. And one more time, let us all breathe in together all over the world as we breathe in with the whole. And stay in that great void, that field of stillness. And exhale. And one last unified breath. Let us all take a brief breath in. And as you exhale, let that energy expand, your awareness expand, and let your prayer, your intention touch this entire planet, all the sentient beings. Know this whole planet is within the field of your awareness. The subtlest element is space, and all of space is within your awareness. As you are, so shall the world be. Know this to be true and live this every moment. I invite you to rest in this space without any effort, without any compulsion to leave anywhere, as Manose soothes your heart further with the sound of his flute. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.